I think when we think of our use of money from a Christian perspective and how our faith informs the use of our resources, I think maybe three different areas. First of all, we want to use our resources to honor God and to say thanks to God for all that God has done. I hope that the stuff of my life honors the Lord. What I do with what I have is one way that I can honor God. What I do with what I have really, in many ways, is reflective of who I am and what's going on inside of me. If you want to know what I'm all about, you can listen to one of my sermons, and hopefully you'll know a little bit more about me then. But if you really want to know who I am and what I'm about, all you really have to do is look at my calendar and my checkbook and see where I spend my time and my resources, and you'll know a great deal about me. Maybe that's why Jesus thought it was so important to talk about. But we want to honor God and say thank you to God with the stuff of our lives. We get this word stewardship, and clearly the word steward is kind of an old-timey word. It just means manager or caretaker, because in the end, our theology tells us that it all belongs to God. And you and I just manage, we take care of whatever it is that God has allowed us to earn and have, through the years. We're just caretakers, and it's not going to be ours forever. At the end of the game, it all goes back in the box. And so we want to just manage it and care for it from God's perspective, while we have time here on this earth. Secondly, I think when I think about my own use of resources and other Christians as they try to work through this issue of what am I supposed to do with what I have, I think most of us really want to make a difference in this world. And money gives us an opportunity to make a difference. I had a scary dream not too long ago about going out to the cemetery, and I was walking through the cemetery, and I found my own headstone. And there on my own headstone it said, Ray Crawford. Then it just said, he lived, he died, so what? I want to make a difference. I want to have a so what in my life, and sharing my resources allows me to do that. Here in Rogers County, some years ago, we said, the state's telling us all the time that 1 out of 5 Oklahoma children goes to bed hungry at night. We don't like that, and so we've started a food pantry, and it's really grown. We had no idea it was going to mushroom, past just caring for a handful of families across the year to now. Last year, we fed 17,000 Rogers County neighbors. And, that's a little over, actually, 20%, but pretty close. And we feel very good about it. I feel good about supporting that kind of ministry. We're concerned about education in our state. We want our kids to have a good education. We want them to get off to a good start. And we said, well, what can we do on a local level? We said, let's have school supply drive. Let's provide school supplies. So we started that. We did not know that was going to mushroom to where it is now. Last year, we provided school supplies for 22% of all Rogers County students. Public school students. There's about 15,000 of them, and so that school supply drive was a pretty big deal, both in time and resources, but we feel so good about being a part of that. We've said we want to reach out to others with the good news of Jesus Christ and invite other people into a life-giving relationship with Him. At Claremore First United Methodist Church, we have about 1% of Rogers County residents that worship with us on a Sunday morning. There's about 90,000 Rogers County residents. We said, wouldn't it be great to reach out to another 1% of our neighbors and share with them the good news and invite them to be a part of our church and part of God's kingdom? So we're investing in a different campus, trying to start a worship service off-site here. We've started a service in a local restaurant that we think has potential on a Tuesday night. We're trying some other things. All those things cost money and time and resources, but I feel so good personally about investing in that. Many people in our church feel so good about investing because we feel like that's making a difference. And of course, then the final reason I think most of us manage money differently because of our Christian faith is simply this whole idea that we do it for our own spiritual health. Jesus said in Matthew 6:21, and it's a famous verse, he said, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Notice he did not say that your treasure will go where your heart is. He could have said that because that's probably true too. But what he said was, your heart will go where your treasure is. You send your treasure out in advance. You invest in something, and your heart is going to follow. Your interest is going to follow. It's just a rule of life. It's a principle of life. We begin to care for and love the things that we invest in. If you want to love God more, invest in the things of God more, and your heart will follow. I learned that as a student at the University of Tulsa some years ago. I could care less about the stock market. Didn't know I knew there was a stock market, but I never, looked at the, how stocks were doing at that time in my life as I think an 18-year-old student at the university, until a friend of mine took a finance class and then went around to his buddies trying to get $70 from each of us so he could buy stock in Coca-Cola. Well, at that time, $70 wasn't easy to come up with, but I found $70 and we invested in Coca-Cola stock. You know what? We were checking out copies of the Wall Street Journal from the school library so we could follow our stock. Suddenly we cared about the stock market because we were invested in it, and that's just the way it always works. In this passage I'm going to be preaching on, the Corinthians chapter 9, the Apostle Paul is talking about investing in the things of God, investing in Christian ministry. And he tells his friends at Corinth to have a plan. We got to have a plan. My wife and Kathy and I have been following a plan for some years called the 10-10-80 plan. We've been talking about that in our church for some years, especially with our younger families. But the idea is you give away 10%, tithe 10%, and by the way, the 10% tithe is not a new thing. That goes all the way back to Abraham in the Bible. But give away 10%, save 10% because you're going to need it, and then learn to live on 80%. Well, that's just one possible plan. But we need a plan, and I hope to be able to talk about that a little bit. 10-10-80 plan is one possibility. I heard of a friend 15-15-70 plan, whatever. What's your plan?